Hi, I'm Martin Harris, Managing Director of the Brighton Hove Company. Well, it's all about health and it's all about well-being for the citizens of the city, and finding a balance of delivering transport systems that will move people around in huge numbers, but at the same time not do any damage to people's health. And it's critical that we solve those challenges, and we are doing. We're making real progress, but there's work still to be done. There's going to be huge changes. Obviously, technology is coming through, which is cleaning up the way our vehicles operate, whether they be buses and in due course cars as well, and taxis, of course, and freight. It's all going to get technologically more advanced in terms of emissions. But we'll still have a challenge. We're still going to have a challenge of road space and space in the city and the way we want to move about. So the answer isn't going to be simply to think, oh, well, everyone's going to go around in wonderful little electric pods and it'll all be okay, because there won't be the space. So we're still going to need advanced mass transit systems. So the evolution of the bus is going to be a really important part of that, as it is now.
I am Councillor Jill Mitchell. I'm Deputy Leader of Brighton and Hove City Council, and I chair the Council's Environment, Sustainability and Transport Committee. Being able to breathe clean air underpins everything that I think the city should want to achieve as we go forward. This event is leading up to producing a vision for 2030 to find out what kind of city we want to be living in by then, and being able to be healthy, having a city where people want to come and live and to work. Well, over quite a few years now, the Council has pursued a sustainable transport strategy. So this goes from the heavy end of things, the engineering, things such as bus lanes, improving junctions to combat congestion, right the way through to more cycling facilities, improving facilities for walkers, and behaviour change. I'm really keen on the way that we work one-to-one with residents across the city, with businesses and with schools, just to encourage people to think about sustainable forms of travel and not always thinking that they have to rely on the car. We have some of the best bus services in the country here, and I'm really pleased that bus use is rising. So we have to build on that, because I think that is the future. I would like to see an increased use of public transport. I have a vision that the city centre will be served by no emission buses, so say electric buses. People will be able to come in from the outskirts of the city and be able to pick up a low or no emission bus very easily to get them across the city centre. And then that will then give way to improved public open space where people can just sit and enjoy. And I think the whole tenor of the city will change once we get rid of unnecessary traffic.
Hi, my name is Mark Pryor, Assistant Director, City Transport. Well, transport is one of the key contributors to emissions, poor air quality, and particularly noxious particulates from vehicles. So transport has got quite a big role to play in terms of how we can clean up our transport system, look at new technologies, vehicles that can reduce their emissions and actually give the environment a much cleaner position across the city. And residents and people across the UK are becoming increasingly aware of the impact of transport and pollution on their health. So everyone is looking to the transport sector to actually try and clean up its act. The City Council is doing a number of things. It's got a role as an enforcement agency in terms of looking at monitoring and measuring air quality levels across the city. And through an air quality programme board, we're actually now focusing a number of different actions across different services to actually sort of support the delivery of clean air across the city, by ensuring that everyone is joined up and delivering clean air sort of through a whole range of services. There's also a number of transport projects that we're delivering where we're looking at new technologies. We are rolling out electric vehicle charging points to try and give people more choices. and we're supporting those choices again through sustainable transport policies to try and encourage walking, cycling and public transport, to try and get people out of their cars and actually make a difference by making cleaner choices. Technology will be playing its part, so it's likely that we'll be seeing less fossil fuel driven vehicles, so less petrol and diesel driven cars. The transition to electric and possibly hydrogen fuel cells will be starting to happen. I think there'll be big changes in public transport provision, so again there's a role for public transport, so moving away from diesel and petrol vehicles, and again possibly electrification and hydrogen fuel cells. So I think we'll be sort of seeing a much cleaner, a much more modern transport provision in the year 2030.
Professor David Begg, former government transport advisor and chief executive of Transport Times. I mean, clean transport is critical because it's one of the main offenders when it comes to poor air quality. And it's actually a public scandal that we've allowed so many people to die prematurely because our air just isn't clean enough in the UK. I mean, you're 62 times more likely to die from poor air quality in Britain than you are in Sweden, and twice as likely to die from poor air quality in the UK compared with the United States of America. I would much rather the government were on the front foot on this issue rather than continually to have to respond from legal challenges from client health. The latest estimates are that by 2030, 60% of all new cars will be electric. And we know that by 2040, the government want to ban the sale of petrol and diesel cars. So your question about what by 2030 we'll have a lot more electric vehicles, which is good for the environment. The problem is it's not that good for congestion. And right now, you don't really pay much in tax. You actually get subsidised to run an electric car rather than pay any tax. And while there's good environmental reasons for that, they still clog up the road, they still cause congestion. So we're facing a congestion time bomb here in the UK unless the government changes the way we pay for road use, including some form of road pricing.
Hi, my name's Tony Turner. I'm here today at this meeting representing the taxi trade of Brighton. We want the electric vehicles to cut down the emissions. Unfortunately, in Brighton at the moment, there's not many charging points around. We now realise that, and things are going forward to put more charging points in so drivers can go into low emission vehicles, and that's something we need. It's very important. We know for our health reasons alone that over the years, people have got different things wrong with them, caused through air pollution. So it's very important that we get it down, not only for now and for the future. Hopefully I'll still be here, but hopefully at least all the taxis in Brighton will become hybrid or all completely electric.
My name's Andy Eastlake. I'm the Managing Director of the Low Carbon Vehicle Partnership, which is a part government funded grouping based up in London, really bringing together all of the stakeholders in low carbon and low emission transport. We've really got an opportunity to grab the clean transport future, and it's critical that we do to really deliver for the population here the clean air and low carbon future that they all demand. I think it's key that actually that's done by embracing all of the perspectives and all of the opportunities of different transport modes, really working collaboratively between healthy transport, walking, cycling, complementing our buses, and of course where cars, personal cars are needed, or private hire and taxis, using the lowest emission form of those. By looking at it comprehensively, we can deliver on that ultimate objective of zero carbon, zero emission transport in the 2030 timeframe. If we can look forward towards 2030, I guess our vision of what the transport system will look like is very different from where we are now. I think we will still have buses, mass transport buses, we will have cars or something similar, and probably a range of vehicles in between that suit the different applications. What we probably won't have is private drivers operating those vehicles. It's probably ambitious to say that we'll have an autonomous transport system by then, but hopefully we will have a very integrated and collaborative transport network that really helps people who can operate healthily, via cycling and walking, to do that as much as is possible. Mass transit to really get the high density movement on buses in the city centre, and then supportive systems that operate a mobility on demand out into the areas where perhaps mass transit doesn't make economic sense. So I think it's going to be a very different future. I think what we will see is a revolution in the way that transport is powered. It'll be renewable energy of all types and zero emissions, and I think we will have a revolution in the way that people choose their transport. Rather than the natural choice of your personal car at the moment, it will be buying a journey which could spread across a number of different modes. So a very different future than we see at the moment.
My name is Susan Carroll from Scala Advance. So I facilitated a meeting today, two experts from the world of mass transport and technology, two people from Brighton Hove Council and two people from the transport providers in the city, the Big Lemon and Brighton Hove buses. And it was great, actually very, very interesting to get the view of what we need to do. And one of the main things that I learned is it's not really a question of diesel is outright bad. The conversation, I think what I took away from it is the conversation is very much around moving from dirty to clean transport systems and fuel, and how important that is, really to safeguard not just Brighton Hove for now, but also to safeguard the city for future generations. Lots of really good audience interaction, good questions, and obviously it's a huge responsibility for the policymakers, for the decision makers, to make those decisions in a balanced way to meet the needs of mobility of people in the city, and also to allow people the freedom of choice of how they want to get around. So it was very enjoyable, very worthwhile, very interesting.